Okay everybody, so we're going to jump straight into this video. What you want to do is take a plain white oversized t-shirt and take a dress that you have or a shirt and a skirt that you have that fits you the best and trace that out onto the white t-shirt. I'm using a black Sharpie. You can use any type of marker that you want to, or any type of fabric marker if you have one. I just had a Sharpie on hand, so yeah, just trace it out and make sure you give yourself a little bit of extra room for seam allowance. Okay, so once you've marked the outline, you want to take some T-pins, some sewing pins, any type of pins would probably work here. And you just want to pin that into place along the dotted line so that your fabric does not move while you're cutting, because that can be a factor that will mess up the entire outfit. So just be careful when you're using these T-pins and take your time. So now what I'm doing here is cutting the outline, and I'm also cutting a little bit out over the dotted line to give even more seam allowance. Just make sure you give yourself enough. You want to have, it's better to have like a little more than not enough, because then the outfit would be too tight and then you have to redo the whole thing. So be careful when you're cutting, and if you need someone to help you, it's fine. Just get someone to help you and don't cut yourself. And just yeah, take your time. Okay, so what I'm doing here is taking a more squared off top and tracing that onto the already traced out material that we have. And I did it like this because I didn't really have a dress that I wanted to trace that was squared off like the shirt is. And I'm going to be cutting this in half anyway. So if you have a dress that is squared off like Normani's shirt, then by all means you can skip this step and just use the dress from the beginning, but I didn't, so I'm just tracing the fabric like we did before. And sorry for the angle change, but bear with me. And now all you have to do, or all I'm doing, is cutting along the dotted line. And for this part, I probably could have given myself a little bit more seam allowance by cutting underneath the dotted line, because the skirt was kind of long. But to each his own. If you want to cut along the dotted line, go right ahead. It didn't really mess up the outfit. I just could have had a little bit more breathing room. But yeah. I also cut off any extra material like that little corner piece that you see there because it's unnecessary. And then all the rest of the material is basically garbage unless you want to use it for something else. Now what I'm doing is adding on extra T-pins to the top and the bottom so that, again, the fabric does not move. Now we're moving on to the sewing part. I do want to mention that the shirt is not really inside out. I should have flipped it inside out before I started. However, it doesn't really matter because once you cut off all of the neckline of the t-shirt, you won't really tell. So just make sure that the part that you're sewing is going to be flipped inside out so you don't see the stitches. But I'm using white thread that I got from like Walmart or the beauty supply store. And I'm using a curved needle. You can use a straight needle if you want. I just had a curved needle already. And you want to make sure that you sew on one side and then you sew on the other side. So what I mean is that you go in one side and pull it through, and then the side that you pulled it through, you go back down and pull it through. So that, because if you curve it like how you would sew like bundle extensions or something like I'm showing here, then you would mess up the sewing stitch and then your shirt will be all ruined. So you just want to make sure that you take your time. I'm trying to give you guys as much of a close-up as I can. So you go from the top and then from the bottom. Hopefully I'm explaining this well. If not, just I'll try my best to zoom in so you guys can see and just kind of try to follow what I'm doing here. So after I sewed the sides, I took the extra fabric from the top and the bottom and I flipped it over just to hem it a little bit, and I did the exact same steps. And then I have a stencil here that I created on regular paper just to see if I could actually like make this the same sort of numbers. And I have some experience with drawing, so I'm freehanding this. If you're not comfortable doing that, then I would suggest buying a stencil and just tracing it, because, you know, as you know, this is a white shirt and I'm using a black permanent marker, so if I mess up, or if you mess up, you would have to start all over. And if you want, you can do this process before you sew, so that way if you did have to start over, at least you wouldn't waste your time sewing and then have to resew. So just make sure you take your time in this part. This part is sped up, but I was going pretty slow and trying to make the numbers as even as possible. And here you can also look up like graffiti numbers or like graffiti template to see how like you would shade around the numbers, which is what I did. So I just also you can reference Normani's actual outfit, which is also what I have next to me, and do your best to recreate the numbers. And you want to take your time, especially if you're not used to like drawing or you've never done that sort of thing before. If you take your time, I promise you it is very easy and you can achieve the same look. I also want to point out here that I bought like a few fabric markers, but I really didn't need them. I used mostly a Sharpie and a highlighter and like a regular marker. So if you want, you can just use your like regular markers and highlighters that you have around your house already, so you don't have to go out and buy new material. So because I didn't really use anything special here, I just used markers and highlighters. So I kind of like the effect that the highlighter gave because it wasn't like super sharp and straight like the Sharpie was. It gave more of like a kind of like blown out effect a little bit. So it's just your own preference. If you want to buy the markers, you can. I couldn't really find thick tipped ones. I only could find like the fine tips, which would have created more problems for me. But if you're able to find the right markers that you need, then that's great. And I think this part is like the easiest part. Once you have the numbers put on the shirt in black, then all of the tracing and outlining is really, really easy because you already have the numbers down. So all you have to do is follow the lines that you already have. Now I'm just going in with another Sharpie in like a lavender color, and then one of the fabric markers in like a lighter pink, and just adding a few like little details that, you know, will make the shirt look a little bit more like Normani's shirt did. I also want to point out that in this video I didn't include the skirt just because you don't have to sew it. It's really easy and it's the exact same thing as the top. You're just using letters instead of numbers, and do the same thing. Look up the template of graffiti and then just follow that and create the letters of motivation. That is it for this video, guys. I hope this was helpful and I hope you enjoyed watching. Please do subscribe to my channel and like, comment, and share this video with everyone that you know, and I will see you in the next video.